Okay.
Plus, like, been sitting all day and I'm dying. Okay, let's go.
Okay. So you know the next step. We have to grind off the peening on this nut. The shaft comes up through the center of the valve stack. And there's a washer here and a washer there, obviously.
3 of them.
This is the top of the shaft. What they do is they screw on this. So the shaft comes up through the nut. They put on the nut, and then what they do is they actually roll the edge of the shaft over the top of the nut. Think of it as like a rivet. They flatten the shaft over the top of the nut.
Bang it until it's flat.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a press or a banging process. It's definitely some kind of mechanical thing.
Got it.
So this some
extra.
amount of this metal is hanging over the top of the nut. Like a 32nd of an inch.
So all I'm doing is going around and taking off that.
So
That's
all
so
you're doing
weird.
is you're grinding at an angle to try and knock off the edge of the shaft, just the very edge of the shaft. And you want to be careful not to grind anything on the interior hole, because that's also peened on the interior to hold stuff on the inside of the shaft. We don't want a lot of metal shavings in here because it's not good for the valving. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover it with a rag so that any of the metal shavings that we create don't end up
Creating sparks and catching a rag on fire?
No, we won't do that, that's for sure. They won't end up inside the shock when we reassemble it. Down here.
Oh, really? You're gonna like really wrap it?
So now what we've got is the nut poking out. Wow, it's surprising. Alright, so the next step is to try and remove it. Let's find a socket.
Suck it to me. Ping, ping, ping. More drilling.
No. We have to remove the zip tie that we put on earlier to keep these from falling down.
Yellow thing.
That's
It's a
one way to do it.
ring. Now what?
Now you take off the rest of the parts that are loose, and we have to clean these parts.
You have to know. I have a stick to beat you with.
Yeah, but the threads are all messed up, particularly this top thread. It doesn't belong.
I watched the same video you watched.
So that needs to come off.
Give me the file.
That and just whoa. Don't get too crazy like I just did. You're just trying to get him.
Aren't you getting the one below it though?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get him to let go from underneath.
Can I do this, please? What am I doing? I feel like I want the flat edge.
You're just trying to clean up the edges. Hey guys, so we got a little bit of a nightmare on our hands here. I don't know if I have video of it, but that last shock that the Brittany lady was helping me with, she noticed something about it, and she's like, hey, isn't this shock bent? But unfortunately, we'd gone so far in the disassembly, namely grinding down the nut, that we were kind of in sort of a place of no return, right? We couldn't go back. Contacted, I confirmed that it was bent. Again, if I have video of it, I'll show it to you now. If not, here's a picture of the bent shock shaft, and I refuse to use something like that. So, especially for this project. So now I have 2 shocks that are no good, both of which the shafts are garbage. And I contacted the seller of the second one, and they accused me of trying to steal from them and scam them, and they told me that I should be kicked off of the internet or eBay or whatever. It was ridiculous. After a couple of back and forths and some kind of aggressive, inflammatory language. I finally got the guy to calm down and realized through photos and evidence that what they'd sent me was damaged internally and he didn't notice it. It was worthless. So I struck a deal with him. So I kept some of the parts that I could use, and I returned everything else. So now I have the original shock parts and shock body. Obviously disassembled. The shaft for this one I ruined, right? We all remember that. It's a mistake. The one that I bought from the guy, a second one, so we have two here. This one's in better condition, so I'm looking to keep it. Or I am keeping it. Then I purchased another one. This one's not in as great of condition, but literally all I need from this shock is the shaft to be straight and in good condition. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disassemble this third shock, but in a slightly more careful manner, so that I can get to see whether or not the shaft is bent. After I determine whether or not the shaft is bent or straight, I'll grind the nut off afterwards. If it is bent, I'm going to reassemble this thing and send it back, because there's a lot of money and I'm starting to get in quite a bit over my head. We're going to jump ahead and maybe do a time lapse, but more than likely we're just going to jump ahead to when this thing is taken apart. I'm going to do it right now. surface. I'm just going to roll it across the flat surface. Yep, it's straight. Okay, now we're finally ready to start putting together the shock. I've got a straight shaft put together with the best eyelet that I had among the 3 that I purchased, or not purchased, the 2 that I purchased and the one that I originally had. And then I think the first thing I'm going to do here, I actually masked this up so that it didn't get beat up because I actually spent some time cleaning it. But the first thing I'm going to do is put the bushings in the eyelet and in the eyelet of the shock body before we get going on actually putting these parts together. Put in the circlip, and it goes in this side. Should just snap in there once it finds its home. There we go. Now we want to load this with pressure. So what we want to do is we want to push this pivot bearing back up against the circlip so it's loaded with pressure so that the circlip can't bounce out. There it is up against the clip. So now it's just a matter of installing the seals and the bushings. Seal. Just going to press the seal in with a socket on the edges just to make sure. Another seal. This side. Again, a similar technique with the socket. Sort of walking it around the edges, using it to get into all the edges there. There. Bushing number 1. Flip it over. Bushing number 2. Now the shock body. Inherently crooked there. Yeah, it really wants to be crooked. It's getting it. Now we're going to put in the circlip. Doesn't want to go in there. Don't you want to go into your home? Now again, we have to make sure that the circlip is held in by the pressure of the bearing, the outer race of the bearing. So we're going to push the bearing back up against and just slightly touch that clip. Okay, now that the circlip's installed and the bearing's relatively center, it's just a matter of putting in the seals and bushings. It says to grease the seals, but these seals are weird. They're like foam rubber. Before I forget, I want to put the new preload adjustment collars on. Now I'm going to install the new bladder onto the bladder cap. So, new bladder cap, and valve core tool. A very small amount of this shock seal grease. Put on the inside there, just to seal it up. And then this should just slip right over the top of the bladder cap. There we go. And then we'll take the core out and let the bladder relax. Put the core back in and tighten it down. Whole new bladder for the shock. So this next bit is all about getting this shock shaft set up correctly. So we're just going to clamp this in here. I think this is the first thing that has to go on. Indeed it is. And then the bumper. I wish that it was black, but I think I was indeed lucky to find one at all. It's supposed to seat down into that. Get in there. There we go. This whole assembly is supposed to go on here. I don't think it needs to be on there right this second. I think that can wait until we do the spring, because it can slip over the whole eyelet. But that's how that goes, is onto there like that. And then the piston, which I'm going to get a little bit of oil. There we go. Now I will promptly knock it on the ground. Screw everything up and mess up my book, now that it's actually open and dangerous. I'm just going to do the inside here. And then this grease goes on the O-ring. I think this has to go on first. Okay, I just learned that this is backwards. I should have seen that, but Yeah, backwards. All that thing does is make it a flush surface so that I can, because there's a rubber seal on the interior diameter of this that needs to not get damaged. So it just makes this a flat surface so that I can move this without this sharp edge cutting that rubber seal up. Now comes the valve stack here, and it lives up here. Get down there. That is. Now, torque wrench time. Now I'm actually going to put a little mark in between the nut and the, just to peen it, just to be safe here. I didn't need that finger anyway. We're going to start to put fluid back into the shock here. I'm looking to make sure that it goes into the reservoir. I saw in the video I was watching that if you can force air to push it through. Yeah, it's going in there. And the idea is that it's going to cause the oil to overflow. There we go. That is a tight fit, holy moly. Just trying to get to the point where I can get to the circlip groove. And I can get to it now. Let's give you guys a little better look here. Now, I'm gonna peel up my blue masking. Now that I'm done beating on that thing. And then we're gonna put the valve stem core back in. And this is going to need to be filled with nitrogen from the motorcycle shop. Local motorcycle shop can help with that, but in order to seat this, I actually have to fill it with air. So I'm going to get the bicycle pump and fill it with air. And as I fill this, it should move up. Yep, there it goes. $35, $33 now. We're gonna put the cap on. We'll leave that for now. We'll come back and I think we're gonna let the air out later. And now it's a matter of putting this whole situation together and putting it in there. So, take that off, take that off. The unnecessary bits don't need to be on there right now. We're gonna go like this. Oh, there's a little fuzzy on the nut. I hate when there's a fuzzy on the nut. And we're going to slowly work that. Oh man. Down in there, and now now it's going to start overflowing. Bubbles. And they said slowly bring it up. What you're trying to do is get the air out of the valve assembly because there's air trapped on the other side of the valve. Oh, I sucked in some air. That's not good. So fast down, they said, then very slow up. Whoa, that was fast down for sure. It says it should only take 2 or 3 strokes, but I'm being extremely careful. Yeah, there's no more air coming out. We'll do one more. Now that Brittany just showed up, we'll do one more. Right there, and then down fast. And then up slow. And then we leave it like that for a few minutes until all the bubbles go away. Because there's a few bubbles, surface bubbles, sitting right here on the top. See those bubbles there? Yeah. So we're just going to leave those for a few minutes and let them pop. And then we'll come back and top it off. Okay, now all the bubbles have come out of there. And we're going to top this off. There. And we're going to push the seal head down into the shock body. Oh man, that was my face. You probably want to see the after effect. It got on me everywhere. And I was wearing glasses, just regular reading glasses or my everyday glasses. Thankfully, it's not the first time glasses have saved my eyeballs. My jacket. Well, that just happened. I'm gonna go wash my glasses and I'll be right back. Okay, I've gotten all the oil off of my face. Get back to work here. We were trying to push the seal head down. We were so rudely assaulted. How rude. I'm gonna wear safety glasses as well. Just because I didn't appreciate that at all. So the video I was watching said there'd be a point at which I wouldn't be able to compress this any further because of the air in the reservoir. It was correct. I can't compress that any further. So I need to let the air out of the Whoa. Whoa. Suction is weird. Alright. Fair enough. Now we have to put the circlip on. I'm going to waste a perfectly good zip tie just to keep this out of the way for literally a minute. Because I don't have enough hands to deal with that many things at one time. Remember, it might scratch that, so we're going to be careful here. And it goes in the second notch down, not the first one. Trickery. And we're in the first notch, but that's not where we want to be. That's a notch where we want to be. Second. There we go. There we go. So yeah, second notch down there. We're going to add air and watch both of these seat. That's 20. 35. Now this is seated all the way. That's good. Now we're going to clip. Being careful not to scratch the shaft. And we're going to align this with the eyelets of the top, like that. And then we're going to tap. There we go. Now it's going. Now, I expect this to get weaky when I tip it upside down because there was a little bit of oil left in there. So what I'm going to do is actually tip it right now so that I don't forget later on. Ugh, there it goes. Now we pull off the masking here. Now the spring. So I noticed this spring has a small diameter end and a large diameter end. I don't know which one goes which way, but I'm gonna try it both ways here to see if it makes a difference. This whole situation here. What way does this go? Like this, I think. Some more blue glove. Particle. There we go. Okay, now to remove the rest of the masking and clean everything up. I'll be, through editing magic, I'll be back when that's done. So there it is, all finished up. The only thing I have left to do here is get this filled with nitrogen, and then I have to order these bolts. I think I have the bottom bolt, but I think I need to order the top bolt. So once this is filled with nitrogen, the rear shock goes on the swing arm. Swing arm goes on the bike. Thanks for watching.